Welcome to In the Now with VFXnow. I'm your host, J Roen, and welcome to episode 2 of the podcast where we talk about all things tech and creativity. So one thing that kept coming up after the first episode is just how fast everything is moving, and at the same time, how strained everything feels. From hardware, AI, infrastructure, it's all moving fast, but not always smoothly. So today I want to slow things down a bit and actually talk through what's really going on with someone who sees this from the inside. Instead of us just listing trends, I want to ground reality just a little bit more, like what's actually happening and how people are adapting to it. To help this, I have Jason Bloom, CTO of GPL Technologies and renowned electronic musician. He's been in the game for a very long time, and Jason, it's an honor to have you.
Oh, it's good to be here, man. Although I have one question before we get started. This is episode 2?
Yeah.
I wasn't episode 1?
No, you weren't.
Oh, man.
However,
We're going to have a talk after this.
we can bring you back for episode 3, 4, 5, and make up for it. Absolutely. Listen, you're number 1 in my book.
Jeez, shucks. Thanks, man.
Let's just dive right into it. You know, tech growth and acceleration is a huge topic that we're all exploring daily. And it just feels like we're not seeing tech evolve. We're just seeing it accelerate rapidly, to a degree. A lot faster than we would see changes, so to speak. Right now, it's just a straight line of AI, you name it. And
That's it.
That's
Right.
it.
I mean, that's the one.
That's the only thing. I mean, talking about it, the stat that I was going to bring up was AI just hit 100 million users in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we can probably thank OpenClaw and Apple and all these kind of great pushes. But does it feel like things are moving too fast?
I think it always feels like things are moving too fast when there's something really disruptive happening. It's tough to say where things are going because it changes every day, right? I mean, everyone's favorite model today is their least favorite model tomorrow because something is changing, you know? And once you think it's tough to really feel comfortable in an environment where you can't count on anything to stay the same day to day. And it's not just technology, right? I mean, I don't want to digress too far, but world events are changing on a daily basis in a way that is completely unpredictable to anybody, right? I mean, one day things are great, the next day they're not. And then, oh no, we're not doing that anymore. Now they're great again. Seriously, they're great this time, but actually they're not. We just don't know. Nobody knows. So you can see it in the stock market. People are flailing back and forth. They just want to know what the hell is going on. And the disruption that we're seeing in technology is an undercurrent to all that stuff. So it's both affected by those things and also affecting those things at the same time. It's kind of this weird feedback loop that keeps going on. So I guess at the end of all this, I don't really have anything to say other than I agree with you that things are changing super fast. No one really has a clear idea of where it's going. The only way that we can ground ourselves in any way with stuff like this is to look at history and other disruptive times that have been like this. They're few and far between, but I think that I'm fairly optimistic about things in general, and humans haven't completely destroyed themselves yet, and we've had a lot of opportunities to do so. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be okay and that things will come to a landing point and that things will not be as catastrophic as many people think they will be. But it's going to be a weird, rough, rocky time in the process because it's just there's no signpost.
Certainly.
You know?
I was talking to my parents the other day, and as some older folks, they're just scared of everything.
But that's always been older folks,
It's
right?
always
I
older
mean,
folks.
which is us now,
It is.
partially, at least in
We're just
sort
in
of.
the mix, and we use it. You know, we're embracing, so we're a little less scared. And I think it kind of gives us the angle. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would rush to give my mom access to OpenClaw because that might cause some issues.
Yeah, it's you still always hear the stories about old folks getting the fraud calls about, hey, you want a reverse mortgage? Sign here, and OpenClaw would only accelerate that kind of damage.
Of course, right?
So
Yeah.
responsible use is something that everybody needs to understand. And I think in a time where in a time where we all kind of have this infinite power almost to do anything really fast, understanding ethics is one of the most important things out there. It's like
Absolutely.
there needs to be a grounding in what is right for people and progress and the common good. It's really fast to break things really hard. I'm sorry, it's really easy to break things really fast and really hard. So we all have to just check ourselves and not assume that because we can do something, we should do something.
Absolutely, which is a great point. I mean, it carries over to the thought of, regardless of how fast we're moving, there's improvements being made.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it's ethics, it's these models, it's reasoning. There's a lot going into it. But of course, with this crazy rate of demand and all this hardware that's required to operate at this insane level of artificial intelligence, raises demand and kills the supply sometimes.
Oh.
And we happen to be just in this, and I think it's insane on the compute side, and the newer AI systems, RAM specifically, because everybody really needs a lot of RAM to run this, GPUs, you name it. And I kind of spoke with Marvin in our last podcast that it impacts us greatly.
Mm-hmm.
It impacts the folks we work with. And small little shifts is that sometimes the big guy may not let us small fish be able to get some of the hardware these days.
Well, you see a lot of talk about K-shaped economies these days, and I think that that's manifesting itself for us as well.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing are large hyperscalers or private cloud providers who are buying massive quantities of things, and they're buying it at such a they're essentially buying it like there's no tomorrow, right? Like they're just buying everything that they can possibly get their hands on, and that leaves very little for the rest of us. So what we've been seeing is these constant spate of price increases from everybody. They just keep raising prices because supply gets thinner and thinner and thinner. We saw one supplier by the end of March will have anywhere from a 50 to 70% price increase on pretty much everything across the board. We've heard stories about another supplier who, they have POs in hand, they need to fulfill, but now they're going back and saying, oh, well, yeah, we know that you booked this order, but we can't ship it for 2 years. So you still want to keep that order open, or you want to cancel it? Because they're just taking that stuff and they want to shift it somewhere else to a bigger buyer. And we have another supplier who's literally not shipping workstations right now because they can't get the memory they need to put into those workstations because it's all going to servers.
Absolutely.
So it's this weird situation where unless you're literally one of those people who has the buying power of a massive hyperscaler, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever dregs are left at the bottom of the barrel. And it's a bizarre situation to be in because I don't think we've ever been in a situation like that buying technology ever. It's always just been kind of ubiquitous and ready to go.
Available.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, oh, yeah, I want a laptop. I want a workstation. Oh, I need a couple servers. Okay, it costs this. Maybe it's more than you want to pay, but whatever, right? Like, it's not, no, I'm sorry, you can't have it. It's just not there.
It's not there. I mean, the humans can't build it fast enough.
So, what I've been seeing is people are starting to ask questions like, can I rent gear?
Absolutely.
And that's where you step in, right?
Yep.
Can I rent gear until supply chain gets better? Or can I extend support on the stuff I've got? Or can I buy refurb gear, right? Like, is there something that's, maybe it's not quite new, but it's got some kind of guarantee behind it? So, yeah, there's a lot of people who are just looking for any possible stopgap measure they can to deal with these shortages that we're seeing.
Absolutely. And a lot of the new equipment, as it's the most height of the demand right now, has actually driven us to test a lot of these solutions on older faced equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had good success with it. Things can still run. As long as you put a nice GPU in it these days, you can model up pretty much anything, mostly.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I think we've all become accustomed to just getting whatever's new. And, we can get 64 cores now? Cool, I need that instead of 32. And you're like, were you really even using 32? Maybe in some cases, but a lot of cases, maybe not. We all know that there's a certain group of creative types that love to just have whatever's new
Yes.
because it's new. So I think there's, we've entered the phase of optimization, I guess, like a forced optimization cycle where we're going back and saying, okay, how can we refactor stuff that we already have or go through some code and make it operate a little bit more efficiently? Maybe we've been a little sloppy with the way we installed things or wrote applications, and now we can dial that back and make it work better on the hardware that's there, get some more life out of it. I don't think that's a long-term solution, right? But things will progress and they will require more, but I think that that's probably going to be one of the levers that people pull to deal with what's happening right now.
Yeah, and I see us constantly touching that too, which is, it blends into kind of the next phase of it is, AI and everyday tools. So we see this massive expansion towards AI, but I guess if we're running out of equipment on certain areas, how can we leverage those tools that people are using all this equipment for, which I think is kind of the nature of what everybody's doing today. I mean, it doesn't feel like AI is a separate thing anymore. AI is integrated.
Yeah, it can't really be a separate thing anymore. Yeah. I think on the front end of when it was really just starting to take off, people were just cramming AI like into things because it sounded like we don't put AI on it, no one's going to want it. But it sounds cool. Sounds like we got it together. But now we've hit sort of the second or third cycle of them doing this, and we're understanding what does and doesn't work with it, where it makes sense. People are becoming a little bit more comfortable with it. I think they're understanding that AI is not really a threat to their job unless their job wasn't really that hard to begin with. It's a tool to automate and assist people who know what the outcomes should be get work done faster.
Yeah.
I think we've seen automation cycles throughout history. Jobs have always been lost, period. Yes, that happens, right? But the loss of those jobs opens the ability for other jobs to even exist. So I think that we're growing a pie, not slicing up an existing small pie into smaller pieces. I think that there's a lot of opportunity behind this, and everyone's getting to the point where they're a bit more comfortable saying, all right, I need to understand it. I need to integrate it. I really can't get around it. If I decide I don't want to deal with it, I'm at a disadvantage. So this drives that cycle of adoption, which then makes hyperscalers need more gear, which then makes gear harder for us to get. So here we are back in the same conversation again.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because every solution that we're touching these days is starting to have AI baked in by default, whether it's in the back end, whether it's in the front end that the user can see. It just seems like every little instance, there's an effort to make something easier now for us. And we've seen that, all the way down from QuickBooks to the applications that we use, and you name it, it's all over the place. And I think that this is that weird transition where to most, it starts to feel normal.
Yeah, I think it's just become part of the sort of vernacular, right? You're just kind of, it's out there and everybody's using it. So now I think one of the questions shifts from being, it now becomes, do I use your AI or my AI, right? And okay, I know I'm using it, I need to use it, but am I going to use, let's see, you said QuickBooks. Okay, am I going to log into QuickBooks and use whatever AI they've got to ask my QuickBooks questions? Or am I going to develop something on my side that plugs into QuickBooks, and then I ask it questions and it queries QuickBooks and tells me? I think there's a case to be made for both sides of it. I mean, MCP servers made all of the difference in adoption, I think, here, right, for people using AI on a regular basis, and OpenClaw especially.
Yep.
So, but the ability for someone to say, okay, Claude Code, go write me an MCP server to plug into QuickBooks, I would argue gives you more value than using the QuickBooks native AI, because it gives you control over the data in a way that they don't know. Now, they may give you something that's a bit more domain specific, but only you can give yourself the specificity that is native to you and your actual use case. So I think keeping it inside is where it's going to be. And then we'll just have MCP dealing with APIs on the back end for all these different services.
It makes sense. I mean, at that point, you're really targeting the question of speed versus quality. Speed is, it's available, it's there, you don't have to do anything. But is it going to be the response that you want? Is it going to be the tool that you want inside their platform that they developed? And it's your point of having that general-esque of kind of use your all, whatever you want to use over here, in order to knock on the door over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it works great because then you can actually prune quality that you want to see, that makes sense for you and your workflows. And I know that that's one of those barriers is you want to choose a bunch of different models or things like that to kind of work with. We've seen a lot of it where people are developing themselves because they can also build speed and quality into one, but something that makes sense for them completely versus, again, it being a tool that's just baked in like the software itself is already. So,
yeah. Do you want to go ask the QuickBooks AI question and the Amazon AI question and then, I don't know, the ADP, AI question, or do you just want to ask one control point, a question, and then have it decide, oh yeah, that is a question for QuickBooks or Amazon or whatever else, and then have that digested through your context, your system prompt that has an understanding of what's important to you. I would argue that's probably more valuable. I think the domain knowledge that's inherent in some of those custom AIs at QuickBooks or whatever, for example, that does have value. So we'll really have unlocked a lot of things when our AI is talking to their AI and they're working together to understand what it is we think we want. Hopefully at the end of the day that's right and we don't end up all working for them instead. But
well, it's possible we could. We've seen a lot of that too from our side is everybody's developing. They want to develop around their own, and that's where we've adopted the trends and following new hardware and getting new hardware that allow the average general person to be involved with AI at a level that doesn't require you to be so tuned with all these others or expect somebody else or wait for your favorite application to develop AI. You don't necessarily have to anymore. And I think that that's one of the kind of very awesome things that changes now for the company side is, does this mean we're going to have smaller teams but way more output? And
the answer to that is yes.
Yeah,
I mean, without question, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it does seem like teams are getting smaller. There are so many different people sitting in their shop in the backyard building a SaaS app. And it's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And I just had a conversation with a customer this morning about that exact thing. We were talking about asset management. And they're using an asset manager now. It's okay. It's fine. It's worked for a long time. But they're tinkering with Claude Code and wondering, why can't we just build an asset manager? I mean, it really couldn't be that hard to tell it what we want and have it do it. And here's the thing. I think that they're 80% right. I think that pretty much anyone can get into Claude Code and get pretty great results out of it. But I think the place where companies like ours fit in this new world is having the domain knowledge to steer things in the right direction. Because whenever you're coding with Claude Code, if you're not a developer who's going in and then checking the code, you're doing a very quantitative process with a completely qualitative input stream, right? So
you're vibing.
Okay, yes. To put it in a single word, yes, that's exactly what you're doing. And you're hoping that the vibes are good, right? You're hoping that it's going to...
Nobody likes bad vibes.
You're hoping that no one's going to harsh your vibes because that would suck, right? And you might end up on a bad trip. So I think we've moved beyond, okay, we have to go find some developers who I can talk to and can make my stuff. Claude does that now. Now what we need to do is have enough of an understanding of what the business outcomes are and what the security requirements are, what the risk management requirements are, and what the support requirements are behind all those things. Because you can go write an app, I can go write an app, but what if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? Or what if I move on, I don't know, I win the lottery, I don't work here anymore, right? Fine, whatever. Now someone's got to go in and go, hey, Claude, what did Jason do with his code? How did he put it together? Yeah. And you can look at GitHub and you can decode it and everything. So you can get an idea of it, but someone has to maintain it. A person still has to be deciding how that's going to suit our business case today. Someone has to take responsibility for it doing it the right way. Somebody has to assume the risk of whatever this code is not leaking sensitive customer data.
Yep.
Right. So we've been doing what we've been doing a long time. We understand workflows. We understand how pipelines are constructed. We understand the infrastructure behind it and how all the pieces plug together. So I think having that knowledge means a lot here. I think that knowing how to assemble these things, knowing the right questions to ask, and knowing where to go when something goes wrong gives us some value. And I think that's where the value will be in the future for all people, not just us, but everybody. We have agents to do the work now. Done, solved problem. That's all finished. Now, how are we going to make sure that the results are exactly right and that we know why they happened and that we're doing them for the right reasons and that no one else is in there grabbing stuff while we're not looking? There's a lot of other small things that now that we have the easy stuff solved, the harder, more nebulous problems come to the forefront.
Yeah, I think we just build stronger teams because of it.
Absolutely, we do.
You get the tighter niche folks who are tuned to now solving this new problem, which is, okay, cool, we put in AI, but like you said, how do we handle it? Because it is far more broad, and in any case, in 5 years, is going to be far more controlling than I think we see today. Or it's going to have a lot more hands-on, and maybe we won't have phones. There's going to be wild things happening down the line. Thanks to AI. I mean, a few years ago, this was incredibly different. It's how do we grow our team, because we need somebody to develop our website. We need somebody to build this app for us. It's not that way anymore. And I'm sorry to all the web devs and everything like that, but if they also embrace it and use it, they could probably become 100 times more productive.
Well, totally, because I can go develop a website with AI in 20 minutes, and Claude or ChatGPT, I could have a working website that looked good in 20 minutes. But what I can't do is understand how to maintain that over time, or how to evolve it, or how it could be better, right? I don't have that context. I have a really great. Okay, here's a good story with. It wasn't Claude Code. It was actually Codex from ChatGPT. But I got a wild hair to see what it could do, and I said, "Hey, can you write me a VST plugin? Write it in C++." Make a VST plugin in C++. I want a room reverb. I want all the normal controls that a room reverb would have. I want you to compile it, drop it in my VST instruments folder, and let's check it out. 6.5 minutes later, it had done the entire thing. It wrote the reverb plugin, gave me all the controls I needed, and it was in my folder, and it worked. And you know what? It sounded fine. It sounded decent. It wasn't amazing, but it sounded decent. You could use it. And it had all the controls you'd want on a room reverb. Totally cool. Couple of things. Looked like ass, right? The interface was terrible. So I went through a few rounds of iterating with it, saying, hey, make it look a little more natural. Give it some wood paneling, skin it, right? Give it like real looking knobs, like it's a real piece of gear. And it's like, oh, yeah, man, I know what you mean. I totally just did that. Check it out now. And it looked horrible, right? It's just like its idea of things is a little bit off. So you still need people to understand what the final result should be. And then there's also, with things like VST plugins, for audio, or other plugins for video, it's like these things are very subject to interpretation by humans, right?
Yeah.
The end product is made to be consumed by us. So in the case of the VST plugin, I'm not an algorithm engineer. Like, I don't know how to get in there, and if it needs to be warmer or brighter, I know what that means, and I know what frequencies those are, but I don't know how to code that, right? So I don't know what levers to have Claude or ChatGPT or Codex pull to make those changes. So I think it still takes this person who understands at a deep level what's going on under the hood to even say what to change, right? I could mess around with it all day going, no, not warm enough. Oh, I'm too warm. Oh, brighter, right? But after a while, we're splitting so many hairs.
Yep.
And maybe not quite getting where we want to get to. It's that lack of specificity that makes it very hard. I said that word twice in this conversation now. It makes it hard to not waste time, right? There's a lot of human time that will be wasted giving these explanations. Like, no, a little bit more like this. No, not like that. Whereas if you just know what you're looking for, you can direct it immediately to the proper end result. So that's where people like web devs in general, right, they'll still have jobs. They'll just have the same job at a higher level, really delivering their expertise versus just sort of the rote, low level, nails and hammers kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still going to be an involvement of some of these greater roles who are looking at stuff and verifying this. And then again, you can still do it a lot faster. How long would you say that plugin would if you had no AI, how long would it take you to generate that?
So well, first of all, I wouldn't have generated it, right? So that's another good point, right? The fact that these tools exist now gives a whole set of people who never would have done anything the ability to now at least try. But in the past, if I wanted to do that, all right, I'm going to go hire a team of hard-hitting Ukrainians to code out this stuff for me for, the next 2 months. And then 8 weeks later, they'd come back with an iteration of it, and I'd be like, no, warmer, no, brighter. And we'd do some iterative cycles, and, maybe in a few months, I'd have something I wanted to work with. So this whole dev cycle is now, from 2 months is now 6.5 minutes, can iterate much faster. But all it does is get us to that same threshold point, right, where we now need to make these decisions that only people who understand can make.
Absolutely. I mean, everything we're talking about always just links back to the same idea. Why we have demand, why there's a supply shortage, because we have this kind of great new product across the world getting deployed that we're just getting used to. I mean, we have training wheels on the bike still. And thankfully, maybe one. It seems like we're almost teeter-tottering off of one. So yeah, while everything is moving faster, it is seemingly getting more complex. It's getting 100 times easier at the same time, if you know how to leverage it, know how to use it. And that's what kind of makes everything interesting. And this massive change that you and I see everybody in terms of this world of creativity is engaging with right now. We're all still figuring it out, though. And I know that we're using it to our great advantage in any effort.
Yeah, I don't think that we're going to stop figuring it out anytime soon, because I think things are going to be changing on a daily basis. And they have been for a couple of years now. So there'll always be new things happening that we got to watch out for. What I think is interesting about the job front and people worrying about losing jobs, again, like I said before, there's always been these cycles of tech innovation that have cost jobs. Or there have been cycles of tech innovation that have caused people to stop looking at one thing and start looking at another. But I don't think that all these things are mutually exclusive. And I love to frame things in like musical context, right? Because that's like where I come from and understand that kind of stuff. But I keep telling people, like, my favorite thing to say is, like, we've had drum machines for 40 years, but we still got drummers, right? There's a reason that people do things beyond simply doing them, right? They do things because there's a meaning behind them. And I think that's where we kind of come back to the ethics piece of this, right? It's like if there's a motivating factor that is human behind this thing, it doesn't really matter where it came from. I think, 40, 50 years ago, sampling didn't exist. Well, now it does, and there are entire genres of music that are based on sampling. I mean, hip hop is based on literally just playing records, right? So there's these massive forms of entertainment, these forms of expression would not have been possible if these technologies didn't exist. So should we all still be listening to big band because we don't want to, we don't want musicians to be unemployed?
Yes.
But my point is you can still listen to big band if you want to. It's not like it went away. Maybe it became a niche, but it didn't go away. It just expanded and democratized a lot of things. So I'm sure a lot of people, if you're a harpsichord player from, the 1700s, you probably, went to school to play the harpsichord, and you got into the king's court to play in the symphony, and that was your thing. And, there was nothing else. That was what you did. If you wanted to be a musician, you were going to do that, and that was your life. Now people could be like, you know what? I think maybe I would like to try doing some music, or maybe I would like to try crafting some 3D models. Maybe I would like to try putting together a movie. And now they can. Doesn't mean it's going to be good.
They can get a start.
But they can get a start. And for every 100,000 that completely suck, there'll be one that's just totally amazing and deserves to be seen. And I think that makes it worth it.
Absolutely. Well, this was great. Thank you for...
Wait, are we done already?
Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
I don't know. What else should we talk about?
Of my script or not? I did.
I think we did cover a lot of stuff. I mean, I think one of the big things that's impactful for you and me is the shortage of things that are going on, and just how important it is for people to. It's very important for people to know that that's not. It's not like, hey, we don't have stuff this month. We're not going to have stuff this year. Maybe next year. Like, this is a new way of operating that
Absolutely.
people need to get used to. And I don't think that's sunk in yet for a lot of folks. On top of that, with a lot of things that we're seeing in world events, like that's piling more stuff on top of those kinds of shortages. Like if the stuff that's going on with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, okay, well, that's limiting tanker traffic. Okay, fine, gas prices go up. That sucks for everybody, right? Whatever. It's also limiting the amount of helium that's being exported to the world. That's a pretty major component in semiconductor manufacturing. So that means we're going to be slowing down RAM production, CPU production, GPU production. All those things are going to be even slower. All those things like TSMC, is from what I've been hearing, TSMC is booked up for like 2 years in advance, right? So if they're already booked up 2 years in advance, and now they have to deal with a shortage of critical manufacturing components, now that becomes, 3 years or 4? Who even knows what that does to things? But it's not going to be good. And we're already seeing such a massive shortage. Everyone's just got to prepare for the fact that it's not going to be easy to get stuff.
Yeah. We see that daily. It's been harder to meet demands and anybody who comes with a certain spec or looking for something particular.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard for us to service all the time now because we either can't find it, we can't get it, it's just going to take a while. And we generally are looking like the big retailer. It's only a matter of time before they run out.
Yep.
And, they're just kind of blessing their allocations, which is just how they work best. And we're a little stuck. But usually in these times, something new comes from it. And I think what I was mentioning in the last one is we're seeing a lot more unified tech itself. Mm-hmm. So you get smaller footprint boxes that maybe don't require the mass amount of components you generally used to use. Take, for example, the Mac Mini of today or the DGX Spark, like two very small appliances. Sure, they still take quite a bit of these rare earth and you name it to generate, but and they'll be impacted, but they're a little bit more reasonable because it's a lot less parts to build a system. So, maybe that's what comes from this in 5 years or 3 years or 2 years from now is the bigger computer walks away a little bit.
Yeah.
And the new computer shows up. And that is a computer that is a dual. Mm-hmm. There will be different ranges of platforms is my guess, but I think that whenever we see a weird transition like this, that in global impact, it's industry impact, there usually is something that comes from it in a way because humans don't like failure in general cases. And so
we don't like it, but we need it.
We do need it because we have to learn from it.
Yep.
And that's what's triggering, part of the things now where we will find a way to overcome a strait being closed if we have to. If it's still a year or 2 years from now, which God forbid, hopefully not. We will always find ways around it. Whether that's ethical, it might come in and ask questions. I don't know yet. But it's kind of it's crazy, but it's awesome at the same time because it's where innovators shine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of room for people to carve out a niche right now because there's a lot of craziness going on, and people who find a plan and find a way to kind of fill in the gaps. Those are the ones who are going to be rocking because everyone's just looking for some sort of stability, and if you can provide that in any way. And I think that we do provide some of that, right? I think that that's one of the reasons that we exist has always been to give people some stability. So, VFXnow it's always been a great way for someone to bridge the gap until maybe they can buy something that is permanent. For us, it's like, we exist to support people maybe beyond the standard term of their vendor support contract, or maybe we can find ways to throw managed services in that can help them keep using stuff that they might normally retire, or find some way that we can lease things out. There's all kinds of stuff we can do and levers we can pull to make things happen. So
Certainly.
that's where we all come in, I think, in this conversation is
Yeah.
is like removing some of the complexity and confusion associated with what's happening in the world, and being like, hey man, just don't sweat it. Here's some computers. Here's some working software. Just go do what you need to do.
While we bear the burden for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean that's why it's our work,
It is.
right? That's part of our job is to make that happen.
I mean, it's
so.
the service we love providing, because whatever we can do to make things easier for our friends and colleagues and customers is always a dream.
Mm-hmm.
If they're working easy, we're working easy. And we know we've done a good job if they're solid working with us, but they are smoothly working day in,
Yeah.
day out. And we want to be able to provide any tool, whether that be AI, whether that be the support, as you mentioned, for AI. You name it. It's not just AI. It's anything tech. It's anything creative.
Yeah.
We just want to be your friend.
Yeah. What we didn't really talk about was cloud in all of this.
Yeah.
And I think that it's an important conversation to have, because they're the ones buying all the gear that we can't get anymore.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting position to be in, because if you had asked me 2 years ago if I thought that cloud made sense, I would say maybe. Let's look at your workflow. Let's look at where your users are. I think post-COVID, it kind of made more sense than ever, but it didn't. There were still some reasons to be on-prem, but now it kind of makes more sense than ever in a lot of cases to use cloud services,
Absolutely.
because if it's going to cost 70% more to buy a computer, there may not be a cost advantage now to buying it on-prem, right? It may now need to be in the cloud. So those are the kinds of conversations that I'm actually looking forward to having with people, and have been having with people, doing these assessments, figuring out if it makes sense to have things on-prem or not, figuring out if we can, licensing is portable between on-prem and cloud services, getting the tooling set up to make those migrations happen. All that stuff is becoming much more interesting now that the hyperscalers are the ones buying up everyone's inventory.
And it's a good point, though. I mean, it goes inside with like the AI look of everything, where it's always inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen in a lot of cases where people are now, they're either shutting down their building, relocating into a data center of sort, and that's their office.
Yeah.
They work from home, but they have their full stack available to them at any time, much like they were when they were at the office.
Mm-hmm.
That's a COVID era, I still think, because the work from home was embedded
Right.
as soon as that happened, and then you built this norm out of it. But drilling back to it, you see a good mix where the folks who do keep their offices or locations have a hybrid approach, where they are touching a little bit of cloud because they need to expand in one way or another, or just the local items that they maybe already invested in, and it would be very painful, or they can't sell it to kind of get rid of right away. And we've seen that, and that's kind of a good stepping stone, where I know you've been working with your customers trying to relocate them, or seeing what really makes sense, and a good kind of diagnostic of their well-being, of what kind of their status is of their infrastructure, and you name it. And then we've been looking to leverage that same tool set by offering this ability to kind of privatize this hardware that used to get on-prem fully in the cloud, or doing it hybrid, or kind of taking it on-prem. And one of the features I'm really excited to kind of share down the line is more of a flat rate model for the three types, is cloud, on-prem, and hybrid, and really focusing that kind of performance where it almost seems like those three are always going to be there, if you have an office. But then you always have a local system, maybe at home, and maybe you're using AWS or GCP or a small guy. Or
I don't think
VFXnow.
it's never, everybody wants to think in black or white so much. Like it's either going to be all cloud or all on-prem, or, everything's always so extreme in today's world, and it's not the way it is. It's always this shade of gray. There's always some element in between of where reality actually sits, and I think the fact is, having a physical location where real people get together and do real work, while maybe it's not a 40-hour 8 to 5 8, kind of thing, like having that location where we can do this, right? People can converse, people can talk about what's happening, they can have these creative sessions with each other. I think it's more important now than ever.
Yep.
Because how will we know why anyone is doing anything unless we're there being a part of it and doing it for reasons that have a human soul behind it? Like, it's important. So
Culture.
yeah, it's culture. I don't think that the future is all of us sitting in our basements with AI making slop videos. I hope it's not.
You
God.
never know.
But
my AI agent just reached out to Marvin and said, "Hello, how are you?" And I didn't have to message him. No, just
that does bring up another good point, though, of as people use this stuff more, where should it run?
Yeah.
Because I've found out the hard way that it's really easy to blast through tokens in Claude and spend some money. So as you look at your consumption patterns, we're starting to find ways to identify, okay, which elements in the coding process or the dev process can be orchestrated by a higher layer, and then the harder work can be done on-prem, right? Or at a slower speed by a less complicated model that we have more security control over. And then the results of that agent's work can just be fed back to the orchestrator and then assembled into the whole. So it's really, you need the business logic to be on the frontier model, but you don't necessarily need your frontier model doing the literal Python scripting, you know? So starting to look at things in that aspect versus just throwing it at the wall and kind of waiting for it to come back, looking for opportunities to optimize costs, optimize speed, optimize security. All those things are becoming more important, and they're rising more to the top as costs are going up and up and up and up and up in tokens. I mean, you got Jensen saying that engineers should be given a token, part of their pay should be a token budget, which I kind of get, but at the same time, we've come to the point where people are talking like tokens are as valuable as dollars, right? Like,
okay, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see where it's going. If they come in a token-based world, we've now monetized digital currency, which we have already to a degree. Is it just fully there yet? I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things that's bottled up in all this, I believe.
Yeah.
In one way or another. It sure is a wild time.
No, it's crazy. Like I said, we don't know where it's going, but we can see all of these disparate technologies that are a little bit kind of adjacent to each other. And every day they kind of keep getting closer and closer to stacking up and becoming something a little bit more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to punch in? Anything we missed?
Oh, I'm sure we missed something.
I know. We can always chop up, which is the beauty of it.
Yeah, we can chop it up, and I can always come back, right?
Yeah.
Can I come back?
You can.
All right.
And we can revisit episode 2 and say,
Right.
whoa, that sucked. Welcome back to episode 1455 with Jason Bloom.
Today we're talking about AI. Right?
That's great. Well, listen, this was fantastic, man.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate you being here, and you're always a great brain to pick.
Thanks, dude.
And explore, and I know we've done that off mic plenty of times, and it's just been a kind of a really honor to both work alongside you, but just kind of go on this journey and see how we mold these businesses with each other, and it's pretty fun. I can't say there's been any complaints. So,
Glad to hear it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
mean,
appreciate
it definitely feels like we went deeper than we did last time. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you stick around, like, follow, subscribe, because we have plenty more of these coming. I'm J Roen, and you are in the now with VFXnow. We'll catch you next time.